The soft hum of the city night filtered through the towering glass windows of Lucas Montgomery's penthouse. The New York skyline stretched beyond the glass, glowing with the pulse of distant traffic and neon signs. It was late, well past midnight, but Lucas was still at his desk, immersed in the final details of a major investment deal. Work had always been his sanctuary, the only constant in his life. His phone vibrated once, just a single buzz against the polished mahogany surface of his desk. Probably an update from his legal team or another late-night email from a colleague in a different time zone. He reached for the device absent-mindedly, his attention still on the documents in front of him. Then he saw it, a number he didn't recognize. A text message. Lucas frowned slightly. His personal number was private, very few people had access to it. He unlocked his phone, expecting spam or an automated alert. But when his eyes scanned the message, everything inside him stopped. There was no text, no introduction, just an image. His wife, Jaska, in a dimly lit room, wrapped in nothing but a sheet. Her golden hair spread across a pillow. But she wasn't alone. The man beside her was shirtless, muscular, his arm draped possessively around her waist. His face wasn't visible, but it didn't matter. The intimacy, the undeniable betrayal, was as clear as the city lights outside. Lucas felt his heart beat slowly, unnaturally, steady like the eerie calm before a storm. His mind, always calculating, always rational, went blank for a fraction of a second. Then something unexpected happened. He didn't feel rage. He didn't feel the searing pain of a freshly broken heart, nor the desperate denial of a man caught off guard. Instead, a cold, quiet clarity settled over him. He stared at the image for a long time, his fingers tightening around the phone until his knuckles turned white. His breathing remained steady, controlled. His mind, sharpened by years of high-stakes business and relentless negotiations, began to process, analyze, dissect. Jaska had supposedly been at a charity gala that night, that's what she had told him. And yet there she was, tangled with another man. Her supposed elegance and devotion reduced to nothing more than a well-crafted illusion. A lesser man might have thrown the phone, screamed, demanded answers. Lucas did none of that. He placed the phone down carefully, with precision, as if the very touch of it might burn him. He exhaled slowly, leaning back in his chair. The betrayal was no longer a suspicion, it was a fact. And facts could be handled. His gaze drifted to the panoramic view of the city, his reflection barely visible against the backdrop of lights. A different man might have cried. A different man might have felt powerless. But Lucas Montgomery was not a different man. He had built an empire from nothing, outwitted men twice as ruthless as he was, and turned obstacles into stepping stones. This was just another problem to solve. And solutions were his specialty. He picked up his phone again, staring at the unknown number. Whoever had sent this wanted him to know the truth, whether out of malice or some twisted sense of loyalty, it didn't matter. The only thing that mattered now was what he would do with that truth. Jaska had no idea that the moment he saw that image, her fate had already been sealed. Lucas reached for a glass of whiskey, the amber liquid catching the light as he poured with steady hands. He took a slow sip, savoring the burn. Then, without hesitation, he pressed "Save Image" and set his phone down. A cold, fleeting smile crossed his lips. This wasn't the end. No. This was only the beginning. The glow of the city skyline flickered through the tinted windows of Lucas Montgomery's penthouse. Seated in his study, bathed in the cold glow of his laptop screen, Lucas' fingers tapped rhythmically against the mahogany desk. The image on his phone was burned into his mind, a snapshot that had shattered the illusion of his marriage in an instant. His wife, his beautiful, sophisticated, and seemingly devoted wife, tangled in bed with another man. Lucas exhaled slowly, his breath measured and controlled. A lesser man might have exploded with rage, confronted her, demanded answers. She would twist, manipulate. But Lucas was not a man of impulsive reactions. He was a strategist. First, the truth. The whole truth. He wasn't just going to confirm her betrayal, he was going to understand it, dissect it, and then use it to dismantle her world, methodically and without mercy. Lucas understood the power of information. In his business, knowing what others didn't was the difference between triumph and collapse. He would approach this betrayal the same way he handled hostile acquisitions: gather data, identify weaknesses, and execute with precision. He picked up his phone and made a single call. "Victor," he said calmly. "I need your services." The man on the other end chuckled. "Been a while, Lucas. Must be serious." Lucas glanced once more at the incriminating photo. "It is." Victor Troner was a former intelligence operative turned private investigator, ruthlessly efficient, painfully discreet. If someone had secrets, Victor could uncover them. "I want everything," Lucas continued. "Every text, every meeting, every transaction. And I need it fast." Victor let out a low whistle. "Who are we looking at?" Lucas sent the photo. A moment later, Victor's voice carried a smirk. Well. Looks like your wife has expensive taste. Do you recognize him?" "Not yet. But give me a sec. His name's Brandon Carter. Personal trainer at one of those elite gyms where the membership costs more than a mortgage. Specializes in, how should I put it, private sessions with wealthy, married women." Lucas stayed silent, the words sinking in like venom in his veins. He could already see the pattern forming. "He's not new to this," Victor continued. "And unless I'm wrong, he won't stop anytime soon." A cold, distant smile touched Lucas's lips. "That changes everything." Lucas leaned back in his chair, his dark eyes calculating. A personal trainer, the kind of man who thrived on vanity, charm, and physical allure. A man who understood weakness, not the kind in muscles, but the kind that lives in the minds of the desperate and lonely. This wasn't just a random affair. This was a professional manipulator. A predator. Victor sent a file in under an hour. Lucas opened it, his gaze scanning the contents with clinical efficiency. Full name, Brandon Carter. Age, 32. Occupation, trainer at Attack's Elite Fitness Club. Specialty, high-profile clientele, exclusive in-home sessions. History of multiple affairs with married women. Rumors of financial schemes. Notable assets, luxury condo leased under a shell company. Lucas's grip tightened on the armrest of his chair. This was more than infidelity. This was a calculated operation. A man like Brandon didn't seduce rich women by accident. He targeted them, exploited their boredom, their hunger for excitement, their vanity, and once they were hooked, he drained them emotionally, financially, and socially. And now, he had set his sights on Lucas's wife. Big mistake. Lucas checked the time. Midnight. Jaska was asleep in their bedroom, completely unaware that the walls of her perfect world had already begun to collapse. He typed a message to Victor: "Dig deeper. I want finances, hidden accounts, anything we can use against him." A pause, then Victor replied, "Consider it done." Lucas exhaled slowly and closed the file. This was no longer just about Jaska. This was about the man who had stepped into his life thinking he could take what wasn't his. Lucas didn't explode in anger. He didn't confront anyone. He simply sat in the low glow of his office, his mind weaving the threads of a plan that would not only expose the affair, but destroy them both. And neither of them would see it coming. Lucas Montgomery was seated in his home office, the faint glow of his laptop outlining the sharp lines of his face. His mind was razor-sharp, his pulse steady. He was no longer a betrayed husband drowning in fury. He was a tactician, methodically planning the downfall of the man who dared to touch what belonged to him. The name Brandon Carter now meant nothing more than a problem to eliminate. Lucas wasn't going to confront him like some jealous fool. That would be too predictable, too emotional. Instead, he would dismantle his life with the same precision he applied in business, one calculated move at a time. The hunt had begun. Lucas had paid for the best. A private investigator, discreet and efficient, was already feeding him information late into the night while his wife slept soundly in their bed, completely unaware of what was coming. Lucas reviewed the reports. Brandon Carter, 32 years old, personal trainer at Apex Elite Gym, a luxury fitness club catering to the city's wealthy and influential. The man was undeniably attractive, the kind of charm that made women lower their defenses. He had a sculpted physique, a confident smile, nothing Lucas hadn't seen before. But beneath the polished exterior, the truth was ugly. Brandon wasn't just a flirtatious gym rat. He was a predator who fed on wealthy, married women. His game was simple: lure them in, stroke their egos, make them feel desired, and in return, gain access to their money, their status, their generosity. But what caught Lucas's attention wasn't the women. That was irrelevant. What mattered was the money. Through the investigator's reports and his own business connections, Lucas uncovered a financial web of deceit, fake personal training subscriptions, unauthorized charges, undeclared income, all siphoned off the books. Brandon had been padding his earnings by double-billing high-profile clients, quietly withdrawing cash, and falsifying transaction records. Sloppy. Greedy. Vulnerable, Lucas leaned back in his chair, a slow smile forming. The fool had left a trail, and Lucas knew exactly how to burn it all down. The next morning, Lucas made his first move, a discreet call to the owner of Apex Elite Gym. The man on the other end was cautious but intrigued when Lucas hinted at financial discrepancies. Money was the universal language of power. And when Lucas mentioned Brandon had been skimming off high-profile clients, the gym owner listened. Within 24 hours, an internal audit was launched. At the same time, Lucas ensured that anonymously leaked documents reached the city's tax authorities: years of unreported income, unpaid taxes, multiple red flags that would put Brandon under immediate scrutiny. Then, the final blow, a carefully worded email sent to several of Brandon's wealthiest clients, those he had been overcharging. A polite, professional message urging them to review their gym billing records for irregularities. Lucas knew one thing: the rich hate being scammed. By the end of the day, the dominoes were falling. The collapse. That night, Brandon strolled into Apex Elite Gym as he always did, cocky, untouchable, oblivious. He had no idea his world was already crumbling. It began with a phone call from his boss. Then, a closed-door meeting. His pulse spiked when he saw the printed records of fraudulent transactions laid out on the desk. They knew. The accusations came fast: unauthorized charges, financial misconduct, violations of gym policy. "I have no idea what this is about," Brandon lied, but the sweat on his forehead betrayed him. "Really?" his boss said coldly. "Because the IRS seems very interested in speaking with you." The weight of those words hit like a hammer. Brandon tried to talk his way out of it, but it was useless. The gym fired him on the spot. His accounts were frozen pending investigation. The IRS had officially opened a case. Just like that, his comfortable lifestyle vanished. The golden boy. The gym's favorite trainer. The smooth-talking hustler who seduced rich women, was now just a man with nothing. Panic set in. By the time Brandon walked out of the gym, his hands were shaking. He didn't even bother calling his boss back. There was no saving his job. Instead, he grabbed his phone and did what desperate men do: he called Jaska. Once, twice, 3 times, voicemail. His stomach twisted. He sent a message: "Babe, something's wrong. Please call me." Nothing. No response. Brandon ran a hand through his hair, glancing around like he could somehow escape the walls closing in around him. No job. No money. And now, the woman who had been his golden ticket was ignoring him. The puppeteer watches. Across the city, Lucas sat in his office, watching the fallout of his plan unfold in real time. His phone lit up with notifications. Brandon had been fired. The IRS was investigating. The private investigator confirmed Brandon's frantic attempts to reach Jaska. Lucas allowed himself a single, satisfied breath. Phase 1 was complete, but this was only the beginning, the illusion. That night, Jaska stood in front of the mirror, admiring her reflection. A deep emerald green dress hugged her figure, shimmering under the warm golden light of her bedroom lamp. Diamond earrings, a gift from Lucas on their anniversary last year, sparkled like frozen fire. She smiled, pleased. Tonight was special. Lucas had suggested dinner at Le Chat, one of the most exclusive restaurants in the city. A place where only the elite dined. It was a rare occasion for them. He was always busy with work, and she was always busy, elsewhere. But tonight, he had cleared his schedule just for her. A romantic evening for the two of them. She could hardly wait. Lucas was already waiting downstairs when she descended. He looked flawless, refined in a tailored black suit, silver cufflinks gleaming as he adjusted his watch. He smiled at her, but there was something in that smile. Too composed. Too calculated. For a fleeting instant, an instinctive chill ran down Jaska's spine. But she ignored it. As they drove through the city, she basked in the attention, soaking in the admiring glances from passers-by. For Jaska Montgomery, rich, beautiful, envied, untouchable, it was everything she lived for. Or so she thought. The restaurant was exquisite, candlelit tables, the air humming with wealth and sophistication. The maitre d' led them to a private booth, the kind reserved for VIPs. Lucas ordered the usual, a perfectly aged, absurdly expensive bottle of Chateau Margaux. He poured her a glass himself, watching as she took the first sip. "You look happy tonight," she said, swirling the wine gently. He tilted his head slightly, considering her words. "Why wouldn't I be? I'm spending the evening with my wife." There was a strange weight in his voice, but she ignored it. The conversation flowed, light and easy. Memories of past vacations, funny stories from work, trivial gossip about people they barely cared for. He was attentive, charming, even affectionate. If there was any tension, she didn't show it. Then, exactly at 8:45 p.m., her phone vibrated. Jaska reached for it absent-mindedly, expecting a message from a friend, or maybe from him. But as soon as she unlocked the screen, her heart stopped. Her banking app was open. A notification flashed across the top, transaction declined. Her brows furrowed. Another message. Then another. And another. Insufficient funds, account frozen, payment processing error. Her breath caught. That didn't make sense. She quickly tapped to check her balance. The number that greeted her made her stomach drop. 0. Jaska swallowed hard, her throat suddenly dry. The room felt smaller, suffocating. Lucas sipped his wine calmly, watching her without a word. "Is something wrong?" he asked, feigning innocence. I. She tried to mask her panic, but her fingers trembled as she locked the phone and set it down. "It's nothing. Probably just a mistake." He nodded as if he believed her. But she saw it in his eyes. He knew. Her mind raced. She needed to step out, make a call, figure out what was happening. But before she could move, another notification lit up the screen. New message received, unknown number. One attachment. Against her better judgment, she opened it. Her breath hitched as the file loaded. A detailed financial report, bank statements, fraudulent transactions, hidden debts. Names she recognized. That it took her seconds to understand Brandon's financial history. Her vision blurred. Her grip tightened around the phone. She scrolled frantically, pulse pounding in her ears. Fraud. Tax evasion. Lawsuits pending. A pattern of scamming wealthy women. He had lied to her. Used her. No, this can't be real. Her stomach twisted violently as the final piece fell into place. The attached note was a single sentence: "You weren't the first, and you won't be the last." Her fingers went numb. Jaska slowly looked up. Lucas was still there, watching her with a quiet, chilling patience, like a man who had already won the game and was just waiting for his opponent to realize it. And in that moment, she knew, this was his doing. Every piece of it, her hands clenched into fists under the table, nails digging into her palms. She wanted to scream at him, demand answers. But she couldn't. Not here. Not now. Instead, she forced a smile, though it felt like shards of glass were slicing her lips. "I need to go to the bathroom," she whispered. Lucas set his glass down with deliberate care. His voice was soft, but she heard the steel beneath it. "Of course. Take your time." Jaska rose, her knees barely supporting her as she stumbled toward the exit. She needed air. She needed answers. She needed to know how much of her life had been stolen, and more importantly, how much more there was left to lose. The restaurant buzzed with quiet conversation, the clink of glasses, and the soft murmur of a jazz melody floating through the air. Golden light reflected off polished silverware, casting a warm glow over elegant diners. At the center of it all sat Jaska Montgomery, serene, confident, sipping her wine with the grace of a woman who believed she was untouchable. And across from her sat Lucas Montgomery, watching. Slowly turning his glass of whiskey, the ice clinking gently inside. His expression unreadable. His measured smile. He had sat across from her at that same table countless times before, watching her laugh, watching her blink slowly, delighting in her status, basking in the admiration of others. Yes. But tonight was different. Tonight, he was the only one who knew her world was about to shatter. Jaska set down her glass, tilting her head as she looked at him. "You've been quiet tonight," she commented, running a manicured finger along the rim of her glass. "Something on your mind?" Lucas smiled. "Just thinking," he said, his voice soft, controlled. "Thinking about how quickly things can change." She let out a soft, dismissive laugh. "Oh, please. If I've learned anything, it's that some things never change. Power. Money. Status. Some people just have it, and others, well, they don't." Lucas took a slow sip of his drink, watching her over the rim. "Not yet," he thought, "but they will." Right on cue, her phone vibrated. Jaska raised an eyebrow, pulling it from her purse. She read the first message, and a small wrinkle formed between her eyebrows. Then another vibration. And another. Lucas leaned back in his chair, watching. Jaska's breath hitched. Her pupils widened as she scrolled through the notifications, her fingers trembling slightly. The first message was from her bank. "Transaction declined. Your account has been temporarily suspended due to security concerns. Please contact customer service." Another. "Your platinum card has been deactivated." And then, "Urgent alert, ownership transfer. Your primary residence has been reassigned. You no longer have access to this account." Her fingers tightened around the phone, knuckles whitening. She blinked rapidly, as if staring hard enough would make the words change. Lucas reached for his whiskey and sipped slowly, like he wasn't watching her entire world collapse in real time. Jaska's breathing was quick now. She pressed the phone to her ear, calling the bank. No signal. She tried again. Still nothing. Her heart thundered in her chest, loud and deafening. Sweat prickled the back of her neck. This couldn't be happening. This had to be a mistake. Then, another notification blinked on her screen. A name. One she knew. Brandon Carter. Her pulse stumbled. She opened the message. It wasn't from him. It was a file. A folder containing everything about him: fraud, lawsuits, investigations, unpaid debts, illegal transactions. His entire life, a house of cards teetering on the edge of destruction. And the final push, a legal notice showing he was under formal investigation. Jaska felt the blood drain from her face. She looked up at Lucas, her lips parting as if to speak, but no words came out. Her throat was dry. She felt exposed, raw, like someone had ripped the floor from beneath her and left her dangling above a void. Lucas tilted his head. "Something wrong, darling?" Her mouth opened, then closed again. Panic flared in her eyes. My accounts. My house. This is a mistake, Lucas. Something's wrong." He let out a soft chuckle, setting his glass down. "Oh no, Jaska. Nothing is wrong. In fact, everything is exactly as it should be." The realization hit her like a freight train that it was him, her husband. The man she thought was too busy, too wrapped up in his work to notice anything, the man she had betrayed that he knew. And he had been waiting. "Lucas, he raised a hand, cutting her off. His voice remained calm, firm, but now there was an edge to it, something cold. "You always said power and money don't change. That some people are born with it, and others aren't." He leaned forward, eyes locking onto hers. "Well, now it seems you're one of the others." The word sliced into her like a scalpel. Jaska felt the air leave her lungs. The clinking of silverware, the low hum of quiet conversations, it all faded into static. The world blurred around her. Lucas remained perfectly composed, untouched, watching her crumble. Her vision blurred as she stood up, her chair scraping against the floor. The room tilted. She had to leave. She had to fix this. But deep in her gut, a cold, gut-wrenching truth settled into her bones. There was nothing left to fix. Lucas had already won. The city light sparkled in the distance as Lucas Montgomery leaned against the railing of his penthouse suite balcony. The night air was cool, carrying with it the faint sounds of car horns and distant conversation. The weight that had been pressing down on him for weeks, the rage, the betrayal, the cold calculations, was finally lifting. For the first time in what felt like forever, he could breathe. His phone vibrated on the marble countertop inside. Another message. Another update. He had grown used to them in recent weeks, reports, confirmations, the slow unraveling of everything Jaska had built on lies. But tonight was different. There was nothing left to confirm. It was done. Lucas took his time before picking up the device. The screen lit up, illuminating a message from his lawyer. Divorce papers filed. Account secured. Property transfer complete. Jaska officially has nothing. That he exhaled slowly, letting the words sink in. He had imagined this moment so many times, pictured the satisfaction it would bring. And yet, as he stood there, there was no euphoria. No thrill. Only an overwhelming sense of clarity. She was gone from his life. He poured himself a glass of scotch, watching the amber liquid swirl before taking a slow sip. The bitterness burned his throat, but it was nothing compared to the cold fire that had fueled him over the past month. Jaska had once been the woman he thought he'd spend forever with. Her laughter had once filled their home. Her touch had once been something he craved. But now, when he thought of her, all he could see was the image in that damn photo, her lips against another man's skin. The deception. The betrayal. He wondered where she was now. Probably in some hotel, alone, realizing everything she'd taken for granted was gone. Her credit cards declined. Her name erased from every joint account. The friends who once flocked to her for lavish parties and extravagant gifts. Gone the moment the money disappeared. Jessica Montgomery no longer existed. Now, she was just Jaska, a woman without wealth, without status, without influence, and Brandon. Lucas almost laughed at the thought. The man had vanished the moment things got difficult, cutting ties like a rat fleeing a sinking ship. So much for the passion and real emotion Jaska had once claimed to long for. Lucas felt no pity for either of them. A knock at the door broke through his thoughts. He wasn't expecting anyone. When he opened it, a courier stood there, holding an envelope. "Mr. Montgomery?" Lucas nodded, accepting the envelope. It was a handwritten letter. The moment he saw Jaska's delicate script on the front, a wave of something unexpected struck him. He almost didn't open it. But curiosity won. Lucas, I know you hate me now. Maybe you always will. I don't blame you that I've lost everything, and I have no one to blame but myself that I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not expecting anything from you that I just wanted to say, I never thought you were capable of something like this, you were always so kind, so patient. I thought you loved me that I guess I was wrong about a lot of things, goodbye, Jaska. Lucas read the letter twice, then, without hesitation, he walked over to the fireplace, threw the paper into the flames, and watched the past burn to ashes. By the time the sun began rising over the city skyline, Lucas had made his decision. There was nothing left for him here. The house. The cars. The business he'd built from the ground up, it didn't matter. For the first time, he was free. Free to do whatever he wanted. Free to go wherever he pleased. That he picked up his phone, scrolled through his contacts, and made a call. James, he said when his assistant answered, sell the house. Everything. A pause. Everything, sir. Everything, Lucas confirmed. I'm leaving the city. To where? Lucas stepped out onto the balcony once more, inhaling deeply as the morning breeze moved through his shirt. I don't know yet, he admitted, a faint smile tugging at his lips. But anywhere's better than here. For the first time in years, the future belonged to him, and him alone. Story 2. Mornings in the Ioba household had always followed a comfortable routine. Mark would wake up early, make coffee, and sit by the kitchen window, watching the sunrise slide across the horizon. The world outside was peaceful, well-kept lawns, quiet suburban streets, and the occasional jogger passing by. But inside, something had started to feel different. Lately, the air in the house had grown heavier, the silence between him and his wife, Lauren, more pronounced. It wasn't that they argued, no, that would have been too easy to identify. Instead, it was the little things. The way she avoided his gaze during breakfast. The whispered phone calls in the other room. The distant smile she gave him before leaving the house, as if she were physically present, but her mind was miles away. Mark wasn't a paranoid man, but he was observant. It started with small details, Lauren's sudden interest in going out more often, the new dresses she never wore at home, the expensive perfume clinging to her skin when she returned late at night, a scent that wasn't hers. Then came the small lies, meaningless at first. I was with Stephanie, she had said last Tuesday when he casually asked about her evening. But Mark knew Stephanie, she was in Florida visiting her family all week. He let it slide, pretending not to notice, because once you acknowledge the lie, you have to confront the truth. But the truth has a way of making itself known, ready or not. That it was Friday night when the pieces finally fit together. Mark had just finished a late conference call and was heading to bed when he saw Lauren's phone buzzing on the nightstand. Normally, she never left it unattended, but tonight she had left it charging while she showered. One single message glowed on the screen: I can't wait to see you tonight. I'll make sure you forget everything else. Room 609. The words hit him like a cold slap. The room seemed to shrink around him, the walls closing in. The sound of the running water from the bathroom suddenly deafening. Ryan, the name alone sent a sharp stab through his chest. His fingers tightened around the phone as he scrolled up. His breathing grew shallow with every new message. They weren't vague. They weren't innocent. They were explicit, intimate, the kind of words meant to be whispered in dark hotel rooms, not exchanged between a married woman and another man. 1,000 thoughts surged through his mind: rage, betrayal, humiliation. But what unsettled him most was how calm he felt. His heart wasn't racing. His hands didn't tremble. Instead, there was a strange clarity settling over him, like stepping outside in the dead of winter and feeling the sting of frost in the air. He placed the phone exactly where it had been and stepped away from the nightstand, staring at his own reflection in the mirror across the room. A month ago, he would have laughed if someone had suggested his perfect, devoted wife was cheating behind his back. But here he was. Mark wasn't the kind of man to make impulsive decisions. He needed proof, undeniable, irrefutable proof. So instead of confronting her, he waited until morning. Pretended everything was normal. Kissed her cheek before she left. Wished her a good day. Even texted her at noon, asking what she wanted for dinner. Her reply came 10 minutes later, meeting Stephanie after yoga, we'll grab a bite. A lie. Mark already knew exactly where she was going. So he followed her. From a distance, he watched as she pulled into the parking lot of the Grand Pan Hotel, a place known for hosting out-of-town executives and weekend getaways. She wasn't meeting Stephanie. She wasn't anywhere near a yoga class. She walked in with purpose, her steps quick, eager, like she couldn't wait. Mark remained in his car, gripping the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles turned white. There it was, the undeniable, irrefutable truth, his wife was having an affair. And for the first time in his life, Mark Hallow realized, he wasn't the kind of man who would just walk away. No. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Mark Hallow sat alone in his home office, the dim glow of his computer screen casting long shadows across the walls. His fingers hovered over the keyboard, his mind racing with calculations. This wasn't about anger anymore. Anger was a reaction, a weakness. What he needed now was precision. Strategy. His wife Lauren had played her hand. Now, it was his turn. Through a well-placed contact, Mark discovered that Ryan Crawford, the man Lauren had been sleeping with, was planning a special night. Lauren had been glowing all day, humming softly to herself while she packed a small overnight bag. It was a bag Mark recognized from their own weekend getaways. A shiver of disgust ran through him, but he buried it deep. He couldn't afford emotion. Mark traced the reservation effortlessly. The Red Scoton, a private suite, expensive wine, all the signs of a man desperate to impress. It made Mark laugh. Ryan probably thought he was winning. He had no idea that by the end of the night, his arrogance would be shattered. With another discreet call, Mark arranged something through the hotel's catering service. A bottle of vintage Bordeaux, just as Ryan had requested, would be delivered to the suite, but this one came with an extra ingredient. One that would ensure the good doctor had the worst night of his life. It was almost poetic. Mark waited, not with anxiety or nerves, but with cold, calculating patience. Time passed. Each detail unfolded with chilling precision. Lauren left the house just after 7, barely glanced at him, too caught up in her own anticipation. That hurt more than it should have, but he reminded himself, this wasn't about feelings anymore. At 8:30, his phone vibrated. A simple message from his contact, package delivered. A small smile curled at the corner of Mark's lips. Now it was only a matter of time. At the Red Scoton, Lauren entered the suite in high spirits. Ryan had gone all out, candles, silk sheets, thick expensive perfume lingering in the air. He poured 2 glasses of wine, handing one to Lauren before taking a long sip of his own. For a while, things followed his plan. But not for long. 15 minutes, that's all it took before Ryan's confidence began to crumble. His hands, once steady and practiced, started to tremble. He ran a hand through his hair, sweat beading across his forehead. Lauren, unaware, leaned in to kiss him. That's when Ryan realized something was wrong, terribly wrong. Humiliatingly wrong. He clenched his jaw. I don't know. Just give me a second. He stood up, trying to shake it off, but panic had already set in. His body wasn't responding. His charm, his allure, his control, gone in an instant. Lauren's face twisted in disbelief. Are you serious? Ryan exhaled, frustrated, rubbing his temples. This has never happened to me before. Lauren let out a sharp, mocking laugh. Well, it's clearly happening now. Ryan's pulse pounded. His body had betrayed him at the most crucial moment, with the most beautiful woman he'd ever had in his bed. And worse, she was looking at him differently now. Not with admiration. Not with desire. but with something colder, disappointment. The night collapsed into uncomfortable silence, poorly masked frustration, and weak excuses. Lauren tried to be patient at first, but her tolerance had limits. When Ryan muttered, "It's probably just stress," her response was immediate and cutting. "Stress?" she laughed, without a hint of humor. "Or maybe you're just not as impressive as you think." Ryan flinched. The woman he had seduced so easily now looked at him like he was beneath her, like he wasn't a man at all. The tension in the room thickened, shifting from desire to discomfort, to something dangerously close to disgust. Ryan excused himself, locking the bathroom door behind him. He gripped the edges of the sink and stared at his reflection. What the hell just happened? His reputation, his confidence, his ego, all destroyed in the span of a single night. And somewhere far away, Mark Hallow was smiling. Lauren had always been used to luxury. She thrived on the thrill of buying without checking price tags, of sliding her platinum card and watching the world bow at her feet. The idea of living without unlimited access to money had never even crossed her mind. That was about to change. Mornings in the Ioba household usually began with her lazily sprawled across silk sheets, scrolling through social media and sipping artisanal coffee that Mark had picked up on his way home from the gym. But this morning was different. He had barely spoken to her since their argument the night before, since the incident. Her mind was too preoccupied with the shame, the frustration, the humiliation she had endured when Ryan failed her. So when she grabbed her keys and stepped out for a bit of shopping therapy, she didn't expect anything unusual. The boutique on Fifth Avenue was a small, exclusive one, the kind that didn't display prices. If you had to ask, you didn't belong. Lauren had been a regular for years. The sales associates knew her by name, by scent, by the sound of her designer heels clicking across the marble floors. She pulled a black cocktail dress from the rack and admired it in the mirror, elegant, expensive, perfect. Slipping it on, she walked to the register and offered the cashier the faintest smile, her signature way of acknowledging their existence. "Charging to your usual card, Mrs. Ioba?" the woman asked. Lauren barely looked up. "Yes." She tapped her platinum card on the reader. A short beep. "Declined." She frowned. That was unusual. Maybe the system glitched. She tried again. Declined. Heat crept up the back of her neck. She forced a polite, tense chuckle. "That's strange. Let me try another." She reached into her purse and pulled out another credit card. Swiped. Declined. The room seemed to shrink around her. The sales associate shifted uncomfortably, her professional mask cracking just slightly. Lauren could feel the judgment in her eyes. "This is ridiculous," Lauren muttered under her breath. "Try this one." She handed over a third card. The cashier hesitated, then slid it into the chip reader. Pause. Declined. The silence that followed was deafening. Lauren's lips tightened into a hard line. "There must be some mistake," she said, her voice icy and controlled. "Would you like to try another form of payment?" the associate asked, a little too politely. The humiliation was suffocating. Lauren could feel the other customers stealing glances, whispering behind their perfectly manicured hands. She forced herself to smile. "I'll just call my bank," she said, grabbing her purse and storming out of the boutique, her heels striking the pavement with sharp, furious clicks. The moment she reached her car, she pulled out her phone and dialed the bank, her manicured nails tapping impatiently against the steering wheel. After a short wait, a voice finally answered. "Mrs. Holloway, how can I assist you today?" "My cards aren't working," she snapped. "I need this resolved immediately." There was a pause, hesitation. The representative spoke carefully. "All accounts associated with your name have been frozen by the primary account holder." Lauren felt like she'd been punched in the stomach. "What?" "I'm afraid I can't provide further details, but you may want to speak directly with Mr. Holloway regarding your account access." The line went dead before she could respond. For a moment, she sat there in stunned silence. Then, like a gathering storm, the realization hit her. Mark. Her nails dug into the leather steering wheel. He did this. He was punishing her, and he'd done it without a single word, without a single warning. Her hands trembled with rage as she started the car. This wasn't over. Not even close. Lauren had always believed that status was everything. Money, of course, was essential, but it was power that truly mattered. The quiet, invisible power that came from being someone in high society. It was the ability to step into exclusive circles, to be greeted with admiration at charity events, to lunch at restaurants where the tables were held for her, not just anyone. She had spent years crafting her image, the poised, elegant wife of a successful businessman. The woman other women envied. The one they whispered about. The one they tried to impress. She wasn't just another suburban housewife, she was Lauren Holloway. And that name used to mean something. The first sign of trouble came at the country club. Lauren arrived at the Regency Club for her usual afternoon gathering, a refined affair where the wives of wealthy men sipped expensive wine and exchanged gossip disguised as small talk behind polished smiles. But the moment she stepped inside, she felt something shift. Instead of the usual warm greetings and air kisses, there was a pause. A subtle, but unmistakable hesitation. A flicker of something in their eyes. It wasn't admiration. It wasn't respect. It was judgment. "Oh, Lauren," murmured a woman named Diane, turning her Chardonnay. "Didn't expect to see you here today." There was a weight in her voice. A warning. As if Lauren should have known not to show her face. Lauren's smile tightened. "Why wouldn't I be here?" She took her seat at the white-clothed table, expecting conversation to resume as usual. It didn't. The women exchanged glances, small, flickering looks like some silent signal was passing between them, something Lauren didn't know. Then Diane cleared her throat. "I guess you haven't seen the group chat." Lauren's fingers curled around the stem of her glass. "What group chat?" Silence stretched thick and suffocating. Finally, a woman named Victoria sighed and pulled out her phone. She tapped the screen a few times before sliding it across the table to Lauren. Lauren looked down. The screen displayed a scroll of messages and photos, screenshots of texts. Her texts. Intimate, sensual exchanges with Ryan. Plans. Dates. Things she had written without a second thought because she never imagined they'd be exposed. And underneath them, the comments. "What a disgrace. I feel sorry for her husband. Some women have no class." Her stomach turned to ice. She inhaled sharply and raised her chin. "Where did you get this?" Victoria pulled her phone back with a cold tilt of her head. "It's everywhere, Lauren." The weight of those words settled on her like chains. Lauren left the club in a fog, her hands trembling as she slipped into the driver's seat. Her phone vibrated in her bag, but she ignored it. She already knew what it was: more messages, more calls, more whispers she wasn't supposed to hear but now couldn't escape. She drove aimlessly, her thoughts spinning. Who had done this? Who had leaked those messages? Her first thought was Ryan. But she dismissed it as quickly as it came. He had just as much to lose, if not more. That left only one person, Mark, her husband. The man she had underestimated. She clenched her jaw. Fine. If he wanted war, he'd get war. But as the days passed, it became clear, this wasn't just a passing scandal. The social world she once commanded was turning against her, and the fall was faster, and crueler, than she could have imagined. The invitations that once flooded her inbox stopped cold. She reached out to old friends, only to receive vague excuses. "Sorry, I'm swamped this week." Or worse, no reply at all. At the grocery store, she caught women whispering behind their carts, quickly turning away when they saw she'd noticed. At her favorite boutique, where the staff used to flutter around her and set aside exclusive pieces for her arrival, they now treated her like any other customer. No, not even that. They treated her like a stranger. Everything came to a head at the annual charity gala, an event Lauren had helped organize for years. Dressed in a flawless gown, she walked in with her head held high, refusing to acknowledge the murmurs trailing her. But when she reached the registration table, the woman checking names gave her a tight, apologetic smile. "Oh. Mrs. Holloway. I'm sorry, but your invitation has been revoked." For a moment, Lauren just stared at her. "Excuse me?" The woman shifted, visibly uncomfortable. "There've been concerns. The committee made a decision." Lauren's hands clenched into fists at her sides. "I am the committee." "Not anymore." The words hit harder than any slap. She had been erased, expelled. She turned sharply and pushed toward the exit without another word, her pulse hammering in her throat. Outside, the night air was cool, but it did nothing to calm the burning heat of humiliation in her chest. Mark. He had orchestrated this. She had always believed she was untouchable, that no matter what happened, she would land on her feet. But now, standing alone outside a gala she once ruled, whispers trailing behind her, facing a future she no longer recognized, she realized the bitter truth: she wasn't just falling. She had already fallen. And there was no one to catch her. Across the city, Ryan Crawford sat in his sleek modern office, his feet propped up on a mahogany desk, sipping a glass of top-shelf bourbon. He'd always seen himself as untouchable, a master of his craft, a man who could sculpt perfection from imperfection with the precision of an artist. His clients adored him, his bank account overflowed, and his reputation as one of California's top plastic surgeons was rock solid. Or so he thought. Mark Hallow, on the other hand, was watching that he had already stripped Lauren of her financial freedom. Now it was time for the man who had shared her bed to feel the weight of consequences. Ryan had walked into this game thinking he was a predator. That night, he would learn. He was the prey. The first crack came in the form of a single email. Ryan's assistant, Carla, a sharp-eyed woman, knocked on his door with a concerned look on her face. "Dr. Crawford, we have a problem." Ryan barely looked up. "Unless a patient's on fire, it can wait." "It's not a patient. It's the press." That got his attention. She handed him a printed article from a local medical blog. The headline made his stomach tighten. "Renowned plastic surgeon Ryan Crawford accused of negligence, former patients speak out." Ryan's fingers clenched around the page. He scanned the article, pulse quickening. It detailed complaints from past patients, botched procedures, long-term complications, scars that shouldn't have been there. The accusations weren't entirely new. Every high-profile surgeon had disgruntled clients, but the timing was too perfect. "Who wrote this garbage?" he growled. Carla hesitated. "The source is anonymous," she lowered her voice. "But they have documentation." Ryan's confidence wavered, and then the snowball effect began. By noon, the article had been shared over 10,000 times. By evening, 3 more news outlets picked up the story. By the next morning, Ryan's name was trending, for all the wrong reasons. Then came the real blow. A former patient, a socialite who'd undergone a failed facelift, appeared on live television. Her makeup was carefully applied to highlight the damage. She sobbed as she told the world how Dr. Ryan Crawford had ruined her face, and refused to take responsibility. It was a masterstroke. Ryan knew that no matter how much he denied it, no matter how many lawyers he threw at the situation, the court of public opinion had already ruled, and it only got worse from there. Clients vanished. By the end of the week, appointment cancellations flooded in. "We've lost 6 high-profile clients in 2 days, Carla whispered, her voice tight with panic. "And that's just the beginning." Ryan slammed a fist onto his desk. "Tell them this is a smear campaign. We'll sue for defamation." But Carla only shook her head. "Sir, we received a letter from the board. They're reviewing your medical license." Silence. Ryan's grip on reality began to slip. His mind spun, trying to make sense of it. How? How could this be happening? Then he thought of him, the connection. Mark. Ryan had underestimated him, assumed he was just another weak, oblivious husband. The type who drowns his sorrows in whiskey or pretends not to notice his wife's affair. But now, looking at the wreckage unfolding around him, Ryan understood, this wasn't coincidence. This was precision. Mark hadn't just discovered the affair, he had planned his revenge. And executed it perfectly. The final blow came by the end of the month. The lawsuits had piled up. Sponsors pulled out. Colleagues who once called Ryan a friend now distanced themselves, afraid of being caught in the fallout. And then came the final nail in the coffin, his contract with the clinic was terminated. The official letter from the medical board arrived on a cold Monday morning. It cited a pattern of unethical behavior and medical negligence, pending further investigation. Ryan read it twice. Then a third time. His vision blurred. His entire career, his wealth, his power, it was all crumbling. His hand trembling, he picked up the phone and dialed Lauren's number. She answered on the second ring. "Ryan, what the hell is going on?" she demanded, panic thick in her voice. "It's Mark," he said hoarsely. "He's behind this." There was silence on the other end, then Lauren exhaled sharply, "I know." For the first time in his life, Ryan Crawford felt a true and absolute defeat, and he knew it. Bitterly. Lauren stood in the middle of the grand living room, her hand trembling as she clutched the stem of an untouched wine glass. Outside, the wind howled against the floor-to-ceiling windows, rattling them with the coming storm. She had never felt cold in this house before. She had never felt unwelcome. But now, standing beneath the dim glow of the chandelier, she realized something chilling. This place was no longer hers. The weight of the last few weeks pressed against her chest like an iron cage, the humiliation, the financial ruin, the social exile. Every step she took, every call she made only confirmed one thing: she was alone. Abandoned. Despised, and now, as if some cruel god decided to twist the knife even deeper, she stood facing the only person who had ever loved her more than anything. Mark was seated on the leather sofa, his posture relaxed, fingers interlaced around a glass of amber whiskey that caught the flickering light like a dying flame. He looked at her with the same intense gaze that once had her spellbound, but now, it was unreadable. Cold. Distant. She swallowed hard and stepped forward, her heels echoing on the polished marble floor. "I need to talk to you," she said, her voice barely more than a whisper. Mark raised an eyebrow, tilting his head slightly. "Yes." His tone was almost amused, but underneath, there was something sharper. Razor-like. Lauren hesitated. She had rehearsed this moment 100 times in her head. She had tried to craft the perfect plea. But now, under his stare, she felt exposed, stripped of all the power she once held over him. "I made a mistake," she began, her voice cracking at the edges. "I never meant to." He let out a quiet, humorless laugh that cut through her words. "Mistake," he repeated, leaning forward and placing his glass on the coffee table with a deliberate clink. "That's an interesting choice of words." Lauren's breath hitched. "Mark, please. I know I hurt you. But everything is falling apart. I've lost my friends, my reputation. People look at me like I'm nothing." He studied her for a long moment, then sighed and leaned back against the sofa. "And what exactly do you expect me to do about that?" She blinked. "You can fix this. We can fix this." Mark laughed, a deep, surreal sound that sent a chill down her spine. "You still don't get it, do you?" He stood up, walking toward her. His presence loomed in a way she had never noticed before. "There is no us, Lauren. You burned that bridge the moment you decided I wasn't enough." She reached out for his hand, but he pulled away before she could touch him. Her throat tightened. "I was stupid," she admitted. "I was reckless. But you and me, Mark, you love me." His expression didn't change. "I loved you," he corrected, past tense. The words hit her like a slap that he walked past her toward the fireplace, the flames casting shadows across his face. He didn't turn around, but his voice cut clearly across the room. "Tell me something, Lauren," he said. "Did you ever feel guilty?" She hesitated. She could lie. She could tell him what he wanted to hear. But something in the way he asked made her stomach twist. It was exciting, she confessed. It made me feel powerful. Like I was in control. Mark exhaled slowly. And now? She shut her eyes tightly, battling the knot in her throat. Now I feel like I'm drowning. For the first time, Mark turned fully to face her. His gaze locked with hers. And for a brief moment, she thought she saw something, pity, maybe. Regret. But then it vanished, replaced again by that same cold, unreadable distance. You were never in control, he said simply. Tears welled in her eyes. I don't want to lose you, she whispered. Mark smiled. Not cruelly, but not kindly either. A knowing smile. You already did. The finality in his voice sent a chill through her. She wanted to argue. To beg. But deep down, she knew, it was over. Mark picked up his glass of whiskey again, taking a slow sip. You should go, he said almost casually. Lauren opened her mouth, searching for something, anything, to say. But nothing came out. Her world had collapsed around her. And now, the only person who could have saved her had walked away. She turned stiffly and headed for the door. The marble floor felt colder beneath her feet. The house, once warm and full of life, now felt like a mausoleum. As she stepped into the biting night air, she realized something truly terrifying. For the first time in her life, she had nothing, and no one.